Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto received more than will of fire from Hashirama. What if it was something tangible with the blood of Shodai running through his veins? What changes will come to the Naruto verse? Before we start, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to this channel for more what ifs, and check the description for creator of this great fanfic. So let us start. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. Chapter 32. The End 2, Tsunade-sama. Yes, Sakura. This can't be real. Humans can't do things like this, can they? I've seen several generations Sakura. And out of those, I had only seen two who could. Gigi and Sensei. Said Tsunade, watching the fight before her. Shockwave after shockwave occurred between Naruto and Madara as they were going blow for blow at the moment. It's why they considered them both a god of shinobi. I'm starting to see why Madara was considered Gigi's equal. And why they call Naruto Hashirama's heir. He fights almost like him. Tsunade and Sakura watched Naruto belt Madara backward with a roundhouse. The Jinchuriki ate an up kick when he tried to press his advantage. I don't see an opportunity to jump in. Not on this fight, said Sakura, looking down some to see the other battles going on. There probably won't be. But if there is, we have to make sure we take it. Or medics, but you remember rule number 4, said Tsunade, getting a nod from Sakura. Tsunade then covered up as she warned Sakura. Here comes another shockwave. A mighty wind billowed from the last exchange as it nearly blew Sakura off her feet. Having slid back several feet, Sakura only shook her head. It is like watching gods, said Sakura, hair blowing from the wind whipping. I'm not calling Naruto a god of shinobi after this. Tsunade just smiled as she watched Naruto and Madara simultaneously hold a hand seal. Naruto vs Madara. Kaden. Goka Mekyaku, Fire Style. Great Fire Annihilation. Senpo. Kyodai Tsunami, Sage Art. Giant Tsunami. Madara's widespread fire was met equally by Naruto's water wave. The two met head-on as steam rose from the collision. Being enhanced by nature and also naturally stronger than fire, Naruto's jutsu pressed on and forced Madara to leap backward to avoid it. Rinnegan scanning for the real Naruto, Madara wasn't disappointed when he fell to the small pool Naruto created and was met with more taijutsu. Madara brought his forearm up to block the Shunshin appearance of Naruto's foot that was way too easy to stop. Madara's eyes hardened, and he palm thrust the boy back just as he detonated in midair. That seal is still active. I can't use Susanoo, thought Madara, impressed with the Senju in front of him. His most powerful technique rendered obsolete. He did say as long as it stays active, I couldn't. But it also means he can't use that forest technique. Madara belted Naruto with a kick to the ribs after several exchanges before elbowing the Jinchuriki in the side of the head. Naruto stumbled across the soaked plains head over heels from the elbow while Madara fluttered through several more hand seals. You're trivial compared to Hashirama. Given time, you may have surpassed him. Maybe, said Madara. Another explosive fire blast shot from the man's mouth connected with the still rumbling Naruto. Too bad time isn't what you have. You talk too much. Madara's eyes widened at Naruto being behind him. And his voice came with a power drill-like buzz. Senpo. Rasengan Sage Art. Spiraling Spear, said Naruto, drilling the Rasengan variant into Madara's spine. Naruto hit Madara cleanly, but he sensed something strange just before hitting the legendary Uchiha. Something that irked him. You substituted with yourself. Is that what that limbo jutsu does? Madara stood several dozen feet before Naruto as he let out an internal sigh of relief. That one was too close for comfort. Extremely too close. His misdirections with clones are unimaginably perfect. Even fooling my eyes, thought Madara, closing his right eye as he thought that. He'd barely escaped that Rasengan by substituting with the limbo body produced by his eyes. But now he knows that I'm creating clone versions of me. He couldn't do that before. Madara watched Naruto's jutsu cone out through the forest before turning his eyes back to the boy himself. Naruto's sage markings were a deep red as he clapped his hands together. Madara prepped for another attack from the buildup of dense chakra, watching Naruto crater the ground with it. The deep red markings across Naruto's face lightened up considerably. He then just stood up as a small tree sprouted behind him. A sapling? Questioned Madara, looking at the small tree situated behind Naruto. It honestly looked like a weed. Then Madara's Rinnegan picked up on the actual chakra permeating from the small vegetation. Its absorbing nature energy. Madara needed to duck as Naruto appeared before him once again. That Shunshin speed was immense. Dodging several punches, Madara caught Naruto's arm before tossing him back to his tree. Madara let loose another fire jutsu and couldn't see Naruto smile as he flipped and landed just behind his tree. Madara ended his torrential fire to check the damage done. What he saw got his eyes to widen. The tree absorbed the fire jutsu with ease, almost like how his Pratapath would. Thanks, said Naruto, just as he came into view from the fire being collected by his tree, which was noticeably taller now. This tree will be the end of him. The tree continued to grow slowly, centimeter by centimeter. Madara eyed the chakra continuously pouring into the ever-growing tree before narrowing his eyes at Naruto. Naruto returned the gaze unyielding at the Uchiha. I can't hit him. He can't hit me. We match ninjutsu for ninjutsu. And any genjutsu I have tried or could, he'd break immediately, thought Madara, seeing Naruto build up the chakra for another Shunshin. Madara didn't want another waste of time fistfight. It was time to end this. No despair, boy. Kuchios. Naruto appeared before Madara before seeing the ground crack beneath him. Naruto jumped high into the air and watched a massive hand come out of the ground. Naruto guided himself back to his tree with a wind burst to dodge the hand trying to grab him. Naruto saw a massive creature begin to reveal itself from the ground beneath Madara the whole way back. Jubi. So that's what it looks like. No. It is incomplete. For now. Probably needs me to revive fully. Said Kurama in Naruto's head just as the Jubi roared. Going to need to protect the tree with that if you ever hope to use it fully. Yeah, said Naruto in reply before clapping his hands together. The Jubi roared once more at Naruto before being commanded by Madara to attack him. Madara watched the tree Naruto made shrink back to its standard size before tremors were felt. Madara's Rinnegan widened in what looked like excitement more than shock as he grinned heavily. He is like Hashirama. Senpo. Mokuten, Shin Susanbeat Sage Art. Mokuten, true several thousand tales, said Naruto as a massive claw reached out of the ground. Yugito vs. Black Zetsu, you should be dead, said Black Zetsu, sending large trees at the evasive Kunoichi. Madara ripped the Nibi out of you. Any Jinchuriki that loses its Biju dies. I guess I got lucky, said Yugito, a Cheshire grin coming to her face. She was making it look like child's play the way she glided through Zetsu's spawning of trees, all the while advancing toward him like she was simply walking. Zetsu upped the number of trees, and their size as Yugito's smile only widened. You're not Naruto-kun. Compared to him, this is like fighting a genin, said Yugito, a Shunshin as she landed before Zetsu once more. Zetsu attempted to dodge but only caught the heel of Yugito's sandal that lifted him upward. This is going to be so much fun. Damn girl, said Black Zetsu, landing before forcing more trees to attack Yugito. Her smile never dropped at all despite the foliage sent her way. I have to make sure I'm back to Madara's when he starts the Moon's Eye plan. I can't keep mother waiting. Zetsu kept sending tree after tree, even noticing a bright blue light shine for a second before disappearing. It disappeared due to the giant constant tree creation from Zetsu before he saw it reappear in the blink of an eye. Especially considering the light ripped right through his body and cut him in half. Kaden. Guka fire style. Hell fire, said Yugito, watching the now bifurcated Zetsu with her grin growing. How beautiful. Jumping over to the black plant man, Yugito pulled out a slip of paper. Placing it on Zetsu, Yugito watched the seal spread before she picked up the two pieces of him. Vanishing in another Shunshin, Yugito was off to another fight. Itachi vs. Kisame, Uchiha vs. Swordsman. The ex-partners stood across from one another. Sharingan vs. Samahata. The two would have likely caused more destruction now, but the two hadn't moved since running to this spot. Itachi was known for his impassiveness and stoic demeanor in battle. Kisame wasn't. So for the swordsman to be mirroring his counterpart, it was an eerie feeling. And that was the scene Yugito landed between. Hey, said Yugito with a wave to Itachi and Kisame. Hello Yugito-san, replied Itachi, still watching Kisame. He seems mad. He has reason to, said Itachi, turning to the girl. Something I can help you with. Amaterasu. This guy, said Yugito, watching the majestic flames spawn on Zetsu. Yugito dropped the quickly burning man to the ground before nodding her head. Thank you. You got this. I do. Thank you. Yugito just nodded to Itachi before heading off to help Sasuke, Jiraiya, en route with the massive Zetsu army. Itachi and Kisame merely continued to stare at one another. Unmoving. Quiet. Until Kisame finally lunged at Itachi. Thought we were partners. We were. I didn't ask for much. Besides transparency, said Kisame, locked Samahata versus Kunai with Itachi. No words. Of course. It's always no words, said Kisame, front-kicking Itachi backward. Itachi burst into crows as Kisame shook his head. I thought I could trust you. Despite our organization, our pasts, our intentions. Even with that, I thought I could trust you. You still can, said Itachi, getting Kisame to turn and cleave him in half. Itachi merely burst into more crows as his voice continued to reach Kisame. You know that you can. Kisame shook slightly for a few moments before shaking his head and letting loose a tidal wave of water. No more words. Just battle. Fists would help him understand. Naruto versus Madara, a massive fox stood clutched in a grasp with the incomplete Jubi. Naruto stood atop his fox's head, right behind the small tree he created. He created that fox solely to preserve the tree. What could be the endgame with that? Questioned Madara, arms crossed while he stood on the Jubi's head. Naruto watched the Jubi roar once before a titanic ball formed right in front of his face. A tailed beast ball. Well, that wouldn't be fun. And he couldn't dodge because the village was right behind him. Or fighting too close to the village, thought Naruto, internally piqued that he allowed Madara to come to him while still close to Konoha simply. Luckily though, he had a plan for that. Hope you like this one. What does he have planned? Questioned Madara, watching Naruto not move to defend the Jubi. He did see Naruto's senjutsu gathering tree shrink again before Naruto clapped his hands. Madara watched Naruto closely before he saw the clouds above parting. This boy. The next generation will always be better than the last, said Naruto, just as the head of a massive Venus flytrap descended to the earth. Madara likened it to the meteor he dropped. Only alive and coming right for him. Kudarazaka Nikishoku Butsu, descent of the carnivorous Buddha. Madara could only smile as the Jubi was forced to launch the Baijudama at the massive plant. The plant did expel a plume of pollen before being forced to digest the unstable ball of energy. The ball ripped through the plant before exploding in the sky with a wave. The plant dispelled, but the pollen it exuded continued to flutter to the ground. This boy isn't Hashirama. He doesn't live up to Hashirama. He is better, thought Madara, watching Naruto appear before him on the head of the Jubi. This pollen has chakra absorption properties. It's siphoning it to that tree on the fox's head. Madara locked into a battle of fists with Naruto as he stared at the young Senju. Do you believe that the next generation becomes better than the last? It is only logical, said Naruto, watching the Jubi shake irritably at the pollen covering it. You were all blindly gathering strength. Some were garnering it better than others. Continued Naruto, striking at the dodging Madara. You all had your methods and teachings that you passed down. Someone was bound to get them, take them, and go further with them. I see. Your logic is sound. However, that logic doesn't exist when you've reached the pinnacle as I have. You're still out of your league despite your ability. Said Madara, blocking a kick from Naruto. Madara felt his bones creak at the force. He's stronger. You compared me to Hashirama Jiji. I'm not him. And this isn't the same battle that you two had before. Said Naruto, actually getting Madara to defend against him actively. Madara continued to hear his bones groan under the pressure of the strikes that he couldn't get away from. When you faced Jiji, you had the Kyuubi on your side and still lost. This time, you don't have the Kyuubi. Because, said Naruto, speeding up even faster before violently kicking Madara off the Jubi. I'm the Kyuubi. Madara heard the voice. It was the actual Kyuubi talking to him, and it explained his augmented speed and power. I'm fighting the beast, said Madara, smiling before pulling his war fan off his back. A simple wave had Naruto fly off the Jubi and blow the chakra-absorbing pollen off the beast. He wouldn't have its chakra continuously stolen. Well, bring it on. If you say so, said Naruto before a titanic Rasengan appeared in the mouth of his wooden fox. Cho Rasenho, super spiraling cannon. Naruto vanished in a shunshin to arrive before Madara as his fox, and the ten tails went toe-to-toe. A brilliant blue beam erupted from the fox that rocked the side of the Jubi's massive frame. Madara swatted at Naruto with his fan as Naruto jumped and landed atop it. Kicking at Madara, Naruto's foot was caught as Madara gripped it tightly. Naruto had a grimace on his face at the painfully tight grip before getting snatched down into an elbow. Feeling the wind pass his head from that dodged elbow, Naruto retaliated with a punch to Madara's gut. Madara stopped the fist but still felt the impact. Senjutsu lets me add range to my attacks, said Naruto, a Rasengan pulsing in both of his hands. Substitute from this. Senpo. Rasenrangan, Sage Art. Rasengan Barrage. Rinbo. Hengoku. Madara attempted to do just that. For some reason, Naruto was indeed that much faster than him now. It couldn't be solely the Kyuubi giving him that boost. Regardless, Madara didn't want to find out and created 4 limbo bodies to help him. It didn't work as Naruto's sage markings turned a deep red. Rasen Senko Cho Rinbu Kozen Shiki, Spiraling Flash Super Round Howl participate. By the time Naruto finished the name of his jutsu, 10 Rasengans had gone off, Madara and his limbo bodies were sent reeling backward, and the legendary Uchiha even got up with 2 smoky holes in his armor. You seriously need to find a better name for that. Takes way too long. He's already back on his feet. Dad's naming is awesome. And you know it, said Naruto back to his furry partner. The Senju then looked at the shook-up Uchiha before smiling. Uchiha Madara. This is the end. Madara could feel the debilitating and concussive effects of that double Rasengan to the chest, and he didn't like it. Especially considering he didn't even see Naruto move. Yet he managed to hit him twice and each of his limbo bodies twice in an instant. And now that same person was claiming that he was about to end the fight. Senpo. Shinra Bansho, Sage Art. The whole of creation. The name of my weed, said Naruto. A wood clone dropped out of the air to land next to Naruto. The clone didn't come alone, its body was the tree Naruto created earlier. I haven't perfected this to the point of using it without a clone. But who cares? Hopefully, this is the only time I have ever to use this. He can't think I'm just going to allow him to create that, said Madara, watching Naruto hold up a palm. His clone placed its hands above his as a pitch-black ball spawned. Madara struggled to stand as he glanced over at the Jubi. I need to get back to the Jubi. If I get to. I'm no liar, Madara. This is over, said Naruto, cutting off Madara's thoughts with his words and 9 overlapping torii that pinned Madara down. Vines sprouted around Madara that constricted him even further. There's no scheme. No escape. No nothing. You're dying, said Naruto, the pitch-black ball in his hands condensing to the size of a gumball. I'm not Gigi. He tried to save you. I'm just going to kill you. Simple as that. I'm stuck, thought Madara, no budge at all when he tried to overpower the vines and torii. You caught me off guard when you first arrived. Plus, you could use Susanoo. Continued Naruto while a green shell began to form around the black ball in his hand. I honestly thought this would be harder. But without Susanoo, you're not that scary. You're barely better than Sasuke. Finished Naruto, happy with the ball in his hand. The stable green shell coating the black, unstable core was slowly expanding up Naruto's arm to cover his hand to his shoulder. A Kekai Genkai Rasengan. Sama would be so jealous. He not only nullified my strongest technique. He kept pace with me the whole time, countered my limbo, and even cooked up this ending before my eyes can recharge for another jutsu, thought Madara, resigning to his fate finally. Naruto was better than him. And he didn't even plan to drag it out. Efficient with extra prejudice. Not like Madara could say it wasn't unjust. He was trying to kill Naruto. Only fair the boy could do it back. But to think this was it. His over 100-year-old plan. His second life. His reaching the pinnacle by achieving the Rinnegan. All rendered obsolete by the boy, no, man that dissected him easily. Madara figured he should have put up a better fight. But like Naruto said, without Susanoo, he was practically useless. Not useless but useless in relevance to a Kyuubi Jinchuriki with Mokuton inability to match him even when he had all his skills. It's crazy how fast that all flew through Madara's head. Because Naruto wasn't slow building up the jutsu, it had only been a few seconds. Guess this is the reflective moment dying gives before death. A death that was finally here. All the chakra the tree naturally gathered with senjutsu, the chakra I stole from the Jubi, and mine and Kurama's owner in this. Goodbye, Madara, said Naruto, eyes flashing to Kurama's when he spoke the man's name. Senpo. Mokuten, Tengoku no Rasenransu, Sage Art. Would release, Heavenly Spiraling Lance. The green shell and black core of Naruto's Rasengan variant sat neatly along the entirety of Naruto's right arm. When he finished his jutsu name, the lance rocketed off his arm before piercing Madara cleanly through the chest. The lance annihilated the lowest Torii Madara was trapped under before detonating and expanding to destroy the other 8. Naruto stood unflinching, watching his wood Rasengan tear apart Madara at the cellular level. It first ripped a hole from shoulder to shoulder wide through Madara's chest, but the actual detonation was shredding him into nothingness. It was a green dome that eventually turned opaque and black for a brief second. The black dome eventually faded to show nothing but a forest there. Madara's chakra signature is gone completely. Naruto's sage markings faded as he stood, breathing slightly heavy from the jutsu he just used. The sage markings on his face were barely there just as Tsunade and Sakura landed next to him. Sakura looked extremely happy, just like Tsunade, though the older woman noted that Naruto wasn't smiling. Which was weird because he just beat Madara. What's wrong, Gaki? He's still alive. The moment Naruto said that, his sage markings revitalized just as Madara's chakra signature reappeared. Naruto let out a sigh before turning to see the legendary Uchiha standing with his arms crossed and completely unscathed. Seeing both Rinnegan, Naruto narrowed his eyes. I know you used a Zanagi. Why didn't you lose an eye? Questioned Naruto, watching both eyes shine ominously at him. As I said, I've reached the pinnacle, said Madara. Hidden to Naruto and everyone, a Sharingan implanted in Madara's hand closed forever. Seems it worked perfectly. Implanting that eye was ingenious, Obito, and I'll have to thank you for it later. If you survive. Ba-chan. Sakura-chan. Please get back. He nullified my seal. Said Naruto, finally understanding why Madara let him kill him. I killed him, but now that I think about it, did he plan for it to happen? Because due to that, the seal in Kumo is void. Susanoo, said Madara, blue chakra construct coming to life as it fired off several beads at Naruto and the two medics. Kuchiyos. Rashomon, said Naruto, summoning a demonic wall to block the attack. Shifting his hands to the snake seal, Naruto turned back to Tsunade and Sakura. Don't get caught up in any of this until it's done. I won't be able to fight him while protecting you both. Tsunade and Sakura nodded before retreating to a safe distance once more. How are you doing in there, Kurama? I'm fine. Gathering senjutsu isn't hard. Your avatar versus that will affect everyone if you don't move away from the fights or village. Said Kurama, already knowing what Naruto wanted to do. Might want to get some distance before spawning it. Hey. You haven't been paying attention. The village is perfect for this. Said Naruto, watching a chakra sword slice his gate in half. Neither has Madara, apparently because I used this to escape him. Used what? Questioned Kurama before seeing a Venus flytrap spawn next to Madara in his Susanoo. Seeing a familiar kunai in its mouth, Kurama smiled. Kid. You're insane. Yeah, said Naruto, switching to the ram seal. Located at 4 corners surrounding the village was an identical kunai that matched the one next to Madara. Hurration. Instantly, Madara stood in the center of Konoha. Only Konoha vanished from that spot at the exact moment Madara appeared. Madara then took notice of Naruto standing before him as the Jinchuriki clapped his hands. Inari. Madara's eyes widened at the jutsu he saw Naruto creating. How a senju never ceased to amaze him. Forcing his own Susanoo to fully complete, Madara was giddy at the showdown about to happen. I'm impressed, boy, shouted Madara, watching an essential wood version of his full-body Susanoo form. Only it had a fox head, claws, and 9 tails swishing behind it. Senju Naruto. You truly live up to Hashirama. Shut up already, said Naruto, standing atop the massive fox's head. This ends now. Looking out at his Susanoo struggling against the Jubi, Naruto realized he needed to end this soon to go tame that monster. My final technique. Nothing else after this one, thought Naruto before smiling. An orange cloak spawned around the Inari before the avatar sped toward Madara. A flash of orange and blue occurred from the collision of Naruto's Inari and Madara's Susanoo. The actual final clash was on. Kakashi versus Tobi, panting heavily, beaten thoroughly, and downright struggling to stand up. Those three things describe the two men facing off against one another. Alone as they were, thanks to the pocket dimension they were in. You seriously don't remember Kakashi? Huh? Questioned the masked man Toby, whose mask was broken and cracked from his fight. He looked horrendous but seemed to be catching a second wind due to his anger. How could you forget? I'm the reason you are what you are right now. What is he talking about? Questioned Kakashi in his head, beaten up just as bad though it was much harder to tell. Hard to remember when I don't know who you are. He'd been winning the exchanges thus far. You do know who I am. I gave you that Sharingan. Kakashi's eyes widened at that to see the masked man removing his mask. The right side of his face looked like a surgical replacement, but it was easy to know who the man was. Kakashi could never forget. Obito. I'd hoped you seeing my face and remembering your failures would bring some ease to my heart, said Obito before warping a shuriken at Kakashi. It only served to make me want to kill you more. Kakashi took the shuriken to the chest and slid back on his back from the force it hit him with. Obito grabbed a kunai before slowly walking to the downed man. He needed to get back to absorb the Jubi. He was going to be the one to change the world. Not Madara. But he needed to finish off his teammate first. Goodbye, Kakashi. I never liked you anyway, said Obito, kunai set to stab into Kakashi before the Uchiha heard the sound of lightning. Obito's eyes widened at the paralyzing feeling in his chest before looking at the Kakashi before him poof into smoke. The real Kakashi stood behind him with only his soul Sharingan open. Sorry, Obito. I'm not as broken up over it anymore, said Kakashi, Rakiri still sparking inside his teammate's chest. The copy ninja also had a kunai stabbed into Obito's neck for added security. Knowing that this masked man has been you the whole time makes me feel better knowing only I know and can keep the idea of you alive for future generations. Continued Kakashi, feeling his friend's last moments alive coming to an end. Goodbye, Obito. Kakashi, said Obito weakly, no longer feeling the rest of his body. Had Kakashi have just stabbed him with a Rakiri, he would still be alive. But the kunai lodged into the top of his spine was perfectly placed. He shouldn't have expected less. How'd you know? Naruto. He could feel your body composition was different and told me to look out for it, said Kakashi, dropping his dead friend to the ground finally. Kakashi stood there looking at Obito's body for several moments before closing his eye finally. The Jonin said a silent prayer before Kakashi began to warp out of the pocket dimension slowly. He could mourn later. For now, he had to check in on everyone else. Jiraiya, Sasuke, en route vs White Zetsu Army. Jiraiya sat in a tree overlooking the battlefield as he wrote casually in his book. Before him were hundreds of shinobi attacking and fending off the massive White Zetsu Army. They were outnumbered 6-1 and had no trouble beating down the plant men. Hey, Jiraiya-sama. Oh, Yugito. Done with Zetsu already? Questioned Jiraiya, watching the girl nod. Jiraiya nodded back before returning to his writing. Good. Sasuke and this route seem to have this under control as well. How's Itachi doing? I'm not sure. I know how strong Uchiha-san is, but, said Yugito, turning back to see a massive dome of water in the distance. Kisami's chakra levels are inhuman. I hope he'll be alright. I'm sure he will. Naruto said Itachi was strong. And for that kid to call anyone strong must mean they're competent. He'll be fine, said Jiraiya before a white Zetsu clone got slung past him. I see you finished off the black one. I see you're still working on the white one. This is child's play, said Sasuke, M's shining toward the former Jinchuriki. He was covered by a purple Susanoo that had black flames around it. You sit there. We have it under control. Will do, said Yugito, watching Sasuke jump back into the fray. Only one more person to check on then. I'm fine as well. Though I would like to see a medic. What great timing, said Yugito, turning to see Kakashi warp to a stand right behind her. She saw his ragged appearance and leapt over to get him to Tsunade and Sakura. I'll see you later, Jiraiya-sama. Don't work too hard. I won't, replied Jiraiya, casually writing still despite the war zone before him. Yugito was off to Tsunade and Sakura with the fatigued Kakashi on her back. Looking ahead, she could see Naruto and Madara facing off in a titanic clash. I'm coming, Naruto-kun. Naruto vs Madara, in terms of strength, Madara's Susanoo was unparalleled. One sword strike could cleave off a mountaintop. However, Naruto's Inari was much agiler, and the 9 tails it had behind it were pretty bothersome. This boy is annoying, thought Madara, watching some of Suzanu's armor fall off from the latest strike. How can he possibly compete with me? Naruto's Inari dodged several sword strikes before getting in close to the chakra warrior once more. Grabbing the wrist of the sword-wielding arm, Naruto's Inari roared before forming a massive Rasengan in its other hand. The Susanoo roared back before swatting the Rasengan away and grappling the fox avatar. This is tougher than I thought, said Naruto, feeling physically tired for the first time in a while. Hadn't felt this drained since going against Sage Mode Jiraiya and the Elder Toads. I grow tired of this stalemate boy, spoke Madara, arms crossed as he sat in his Susanoo. This fight was getting nowhere at this point. Think I'll drop a meteor. I can sacrifice one more eye. It will get rid of him once and for all so I can focus on the 10 tails. Madara placed his hands in a seal but immediately widened his eyes. Turning to the left, Madara only saw a fist. Yugito stood inside the Susanoo and decked the legendary Uchiha with a vicious right hook. That felt so good, said Yugito, launching Madara right out of his Susanoo. Madara looked up at the girl in shock from the crater he had just formed and wondered how she even got in there. Inari absorbs chakra. Made a hole just big enough for me to sneak in. When it grabbed my wrist, thought Madara, feeling a dull throb from his chin. He was confused to see Yugito. How are you still alive? My future ex-husband does amazing things, said Yugito, getting a smile from Naruto. Ex-husband, eh? Means we have to get married first, said Naruto, thrilled Yugito was here now. It meant it was time to finish this. You trying to marry me now? Of course. You said when all this was done. And it's about to be. Said Yugito, watching Madara stand. He looked none too pleased, but it didn't matter. This was already settled. You ready, Naruto-kun? Of course, said Naruto, getting pulled at the collar into a lip lock with the blonde girl after she jumped to his Inari. Several seconds went by as the girl smiled when she ended the kiss. Hee hee. Nice transfer. Thought you'd like it, replied Yugito. Madara still stood on the ground as his eyes told him the real story of that kiss. He could see Naruto and Yugito's chakra levels before the kiss. They were near identical. After, Naruto's chakra intensified to an absurd degree. It was like Yugito gave him her chakra entirely. Unseen to Madara, Yugito had a small, black obsidian moon on her left palm. Upon kissing Naruto, the moon faded away before reappearing on Naruto's left palm. The moon was directly opposite a small, diamond-white circle in his other hand. Naruto, however, didn't care about Madara's lack of knowledge of what was going on. It didn't matter. All that did was it was time to end him finally. Madara. I lied earlier. This is the end, said Naruto, holding up his right palm as a black orb formed. Madara stood in the mini crater from the punch by Yugito before feeling a chill run through his spine. The same chill happened before Hashirama killed him just as Naruto placed his other palm over the tiny orb causing it to spin unstably. No escaping it this time. Rasen Shin, spiraling truth. No. Not again, shouted Madara, but it was too late. Naruto was no longer on his Inari. He was standing right behind him. He was outclassed once more by a Senju. Every time. Chibaku Tensai Planetary Devastation finished Naruto, slamming the spinning black orb into Madara's spine. Initial contact launched Madara into his Susanoo. Spinning end over end as his Susanoo provided no stop for him. The large chakra construct was warping into the sky with him nearly a mile above the ground. Large chunks of earth rushed at Madara like a magnet, crushingly packing him into a tight ball in the sky. Naruto himself looked up before seeing an enormous entity with 2 heads. One demonic and the other angelic clasped its hands in prayer directly on Madara's position. The Uchiha was done. Izanagi wouldn't save him from that. That was a technique from the Rakuto himself. Even the goddess Kagaya couldn't escape that. Sadly though, Naruto's job wasn't done. Can't ever be simple, can it? Wouldn't be easy if it was, replied Kurama in Naruto's head as the boy himself looked over at the Jubi. I hope you're ready for the stress this will put on your body. Of course I am. The ass whipping I'm going to receive after this. Not ready for that. But it's for the best. Said Naruto, looking at Yugito running toward him. Hugging the girl tightly, which surprised her, Naruto looked at her before a tear fell from his eye. I love you. Naruto-kun, questioned Yugito, not understanding the tone or words. All he was about to do was kick the Jubi's ass. Was it not mindless? It should be simple for someone like him. What's wrong? Naruto said nothing before warping away in a shunshin. Yugito's hair blew from the wind kicked up by the shunshin before turning to the Jubi in the distance. Seeing it tear apart Naruto's Susanbe finally, Yugito realized it was much powerful than she figured a rampaging beast would be. Which meant, Naruto-kun. With Naruto seemingly just appeared from his shunshin directly above the Jubi's head. The beast was roaring from finally shredding the enormous tailed fox before it and didn't notice Naruto casually land on its head. Naruto had his eyes closed in silent prayer before placing his hands in the ram seal. Everyone in the vicinity seemed to stop what they were doing to witness what Naruto was doing. His eyes locked with Tsunade's, Jiraiya's, Kakashi's, Sasuke's before finally settling once more on Yugito's. A smile was on his face before the Jubi just warped and screamed out a roar. It looked as though the Jubi was being sucked into a black hole before only Naruto stood in its place. The Senju slowly floated down to the destroyed earth, getting looks from everyone. Naruto looked shocked for a second, staring at himself to see no changes before looking out at Yugito. Before he could say or do anything, Naruto's face cracked, seemingly like destroyed earth. His hair grew white from its sunflower blonde as he aged considerably. He was decaying rapidly. One last look at Yugito before he simply crumbled into nothingness. Everyone's eyes widened in shock from the scene before them as the wind picked up and carried the dust that once was Naruto away from them. Naruto, said Yugito softly, not understanding what just happened. Even the fight between Kisame and Itachi was put on halt as the man who slew Madara was seemingly dissolved into dust. Naruto. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.